ladies and gentlemen. We live in a world where words are tossed around like confetti. Everyone's talking, promising, convincing. But here's the question: how do you separate the truth from the lies? How do you know when someone's being real with you or just putting on a show? The eyes, they say, are the windows to the soul. They hold the raw truth of what someone feels, thinks, and often what they wish to hide. When someone is lying, those windows start to fog up, sometimes even slam shut. Liars know that their words alone may not be enough to convince you, so they try to manipulate their eyes to fit the story they're telling. But here's the thing: the eyes, for all their attempts at control, often betray what the tongue can't. Imagine this: you're having a conversation with someone, and suddenly you ask a question they weren't expecting. Watch their reaction closely. Their eyes might start darting back and forth as if they're trying to find an exit in the middle of the conversation. They look up, down, anywhere but at you. That avoidance of eye contact is a classic tell, a subconscious act of distancing themselves from the lie they're trying to sell you. It's as if looking into your eyes feels too risky because they know the truth might slip through. But there's another side to this. Not every liar avoids eye contact. Some will overcompensate and do the exact opposite. They'll lock their eyes onto yours, holding your gaze with an intensity that feels unnatural. It's as if they're daring you to doubt them, trying to force you into believing their story through sheer willpower. That unyielding stare isn't confidence, it's desperation. They're trying so hard to control the situation that it comes off as rehearsed, even robotic. You'll feel it in the pit of your stomach, that sense that something just isn't right. Here's where it gets tricky. Not every glance or gaze tells the whole story. Some people are naturally shy or anxious and might struggle with eye contact even when they're telling the truth. But there's a difference. A shy person's avoidance feels honest, unguarded. A liar's avoidance feels calculated, strategic. They're not avoiding you because they're uncomfortable. They're avoiding you because they're trying to hide. Now think about the moments when someone's eyes seem to betray a flicker of panic. It's a split second, but it's there, a quick narrowing or widening of the eyes, a rapid blink. That's the body reacting to the stress of maintaining a falsehood. Lying is hard work. It taxes the mind and the body. The brain knows the truth, and when it's forced to create or maintain a lie, it sends signals of discomfort that often show up in the eyes. Then there's the timing. When someone is lying, their eyes often fail to sync with their words. Imagine asking a simple question and the person nods yes, but their eyes say no. Or maybe they're telling you something heartfelt, but their gaze flickers away at the wrong moment, breaking the connection between their words and their actions. It's subtle, but these mismatches are cues that something doesn't add up. Even the blink rate can be revealing. Under normal circumstances, people blink in a steady rhythm, but when they're lying, that rhythm often changes. Some liars blink rapidly as their brain works overtime to fabricate and deliver a convincing story. Others barely blink at all, as if freezing their eyes will somehow make their lie seem more believable. It's these small, almost imperceptible shifts that give the game away if you're paying attention. And let's not forget about pupil dilation. This one's harder to spot, but incredibly telling when you do. The pupils can dilate due to stress, fear, or excitement, all emotions a liar might experience while trying to deceive you. It's the body's natural response to heightened arousal, and it's something they can't consciously control. So while their words might be steady, their eyes might be shouting the truth they're trying to conceal. All of this boils down to intuition. You don't have to be an expert in human behavior to feel when someone's eye movements don't match the energy of the moment. Your instincts often pick up on things your conscious mind might not immediately process. That's why when someone is lying, you often sense it before you can articulate exactly why. The eyes are powerful indicators because they're directly connected to the emotions and impulses that are hardest to fake. So pay attention. When someone's eyes dart too much, avoid yours, or lock on with unnatural intensity, take note. When their gaze doesn't match their words or their blinks and pupils act out of sync, trust that feeling in your gut. Liars can try to control their words, but their eyes will always struggle to keep up with the lie. The truth, as they say, is in the eyes. All you have to do is look for it. Contradictions are the cracks in the armor of deception. Words can be polished, rehearsed, and delivered with confidence, but the body often refuses to play along. This dissonance, this failure to synchronize speech with action, is one of the most reliable ways to spot a liar. When someone is lying, their body becomes an unintentional whistleblower, revealing the truth that their words are working so hard to conceal. Imagine someone telling you they're confident about something, but their body language says otherwise. Their arms might be crossed tightly across their chest, their posture might shrink as if they're trying to make themselves smaller, or they might even take a step back while affirming something is true. These subtle movements are at odds with the message they're trying to deliver, creating a contradiction that speaks volumes. Their words may say, "I'm telling you the truth," but their body is saying, "I'm hiding something." It's not just about posture either. Pay attention to gestures and expressions. A liar might nod yes while saying no, or shake their head no while verbally agreeing. These mismatched signals are often subconscious, a reflection of the internal conflict between their fabricated story and the truth. When someone is being honest, their body and words tend to work in harmony. When they're lying, however, their actions and speech struggle to stay in sync, and that disconnection becomes visible to a careful observer. Think about the way someone tells a story. A confident, truthful narrative flows naturally, but when someone is lying, even the most well-rehearsed story can falter under pressure. Ask a follow-up question, something slightly unexpected, and watch their reaction. That's when the cracks start to show. They might hesitate, repeat the question to buy time, or even change the details of their story without realizing it. This shift isn't always dramatic, but it's enough to notice if you're paying close attention. Now consider facial expressions. A liar often struggles to keep their face in line with their words. They might force a smile that doesn't reach their eyes, or show fleeting micro-expressions of fear or guilt that contradict the confident tone of their voice. These micro-expressions are hard to control because they happen so quickly, sometimes within a fraction of a second, but they reveal a person's true emotions. A liar might insist they're happy or unconcerned, but a flash of anxiety or discomfort on their face betrays their real feelings. Another giveaway lies in the rhythm of their storytelling. When someone is being honest, their words and gestures tend to flow in a natural cadence. When they're lying, you might notice inconsistencies in their timing. For example, their gestures might lag behind their words, as if their body is playing catch-up with the lie. Or they might overcompensate, using exaggerated gestures to try to sell their story. Either way, the lack of synchronicity between their words and actions becomes apparent. Liars also have a tendency to contradict themselves verbally. At first, their story might seem airtight, but as the conversation continues, they start to lose track of the details. They might say one thing early on and something entirely different later, not realizing they've just unraveled their own narrative. These inconsistencies often emerge when they're caught off guard by a question they weren't prepared for. It's in these moments of improvisation that the truth begins to surface. Let's not forget about tone and demeanor. A liar's voice may sound steady at first, but listen closely and you might detect subtle shifts. They might start to speak faster, stumble over their words, or inject unnecessary pauses as they scramble to keep their story straight. Their tone might also fluctuate unnaturally, one moment overly assertive, the next overly defensive. These tonal shifts are often subconscious and can signal the strain of maintaining a falsehood. The effort of lying also tends to manifest physically. A liar might fidget excessively, tapping their fingers, shifting in their seat, or adjusting their clothing. On the other hand, some liars go to the opposite extreme, sitting unnaturally still in an attempt to appear calm. This forced stillness is just as telling as fidgeting, because it's not how people naturally behave when they're relaxed and truthful. It all comes down to the disconnect between what they say and what their body reveals. A truthful person's words and actions align effortlessly. They don't have to think about matching their gestures to their speech or keeping their story consistent. It just happens naturally. A liar, on the other hand, is constantly juggling their words, actions, and emotions. And that juggling act often leads to contradictions. When you observe these mismatches, trust your instincts. The truth doesn't need to be rehearsed, choreographed, or over-explained. Lies, however, require constant maintenance, and in that effort, contradictions inevitably slip through. All you have to do is watch, listen, and trust the signals their body is sending. When someone is lying, their words often fall into one of two extremes. They either flood you with an avalanche of details or leave you grasping at straws, wondering what they're really saying. These contrasting approaches, the over-explainer and the dodger, are two sides of the same coin, both designed to manipulate, distract, and ultimately steer you away from the truth. The over-explainer is a master of embellishment. They'll drown you in a sea of information, giving you every detail, every date, and every name as if they're reciting a script. It can feel almost impressive the way they have an answer for everything, a story for every question. But here's the catch: it's too perfect, too polished. Real truth doesn't always come wrapped up in a bow. People who are being honest don't feel the need to overcompensate with excess detail. They stick to what's necessary, letting their words stand on their own. When someone starts piling on the details, it's often because they're trying to overwhelm you, to bury the lie beneath a mountain of facts. They think that if they give you enough information, you'll stop questioning them. But pay attention, really listen. The details they provide might be abundant, but they often lack depth. It's like a beautifully painted surface with no substance underneath. Ask them to elaborate on one specific point, and you'll notice hesitation, a shift in tone, or a subtle change in the story. That's the stress of trying to keep a fabricated narrative intact. On the other hand, there's the dodger. This is the person who says just enough to answer your question without actually giving you anything solid. Their words feel slippery, like trying to grab water with your hands. They'll keep their answers vague, full of generalities and empty phrases that could mean almost anything. If you press them for specifics, they sidestep, deflect, or steer the conversation in another direction. It's not that they don't know the details, it's that giving them might expose the lie. The dodger relies on ambiguity as a shield. By keeping their responses open-ended, they think they can avoid scrutiny. They'll say things like, "I don't remember exactly," or "It's complicated," or "I'll get back to you on that." These phrases are designed to buy time, to keep you from digging too deep. But the truth doesn't need time. It stands firm, unshaken by questions. When someone is being honest, they don't need to dodge or deflect. They answer directly, even if the answer is incomplete. Both the over-explainer and the dodger share one thing in common: they're trying to control the conversation. The over-explainer uses an overload of information to dominate your attention, while the dodger uses vagueness to keep you at arm's length. In both cases, the goal is the same: to prevent you from looking too closely, from seeing the cracks in their story. Think about how this plays out in real life. You ask a straightforward question, and instead of a straightforward answer, you get either a novel or a riddle. The over-explainer's story might sound convincing at first, but the more you listen, the more it feels rehearsed, almost mechanical. There's no natural flow, no room for uncertainty or imperfection. And when you circle back to something they said earlier, they might stumble, forget, or contradict themselves because they're trying to remember the exact script they've created. The dodger, on the other hand, thrives on evasion. They'll answer your question without really answering it, leaving you more confused than before. If you try to pin them down, they'll shift the topic, turn the question back on you, or even act offended that you're questioning them. This defensive reaction is often a red flag. An honest person doesn't mind being asked for clarification, but a liar sees it as a threat. Here's the key to spotting these patterns: listen with intention. Don't just hear their words, analyze them. Are they giving you too much or too little? Do their answers feel natural, or do they seem overly rehearsed or conspicuously vague? And most importantly, does what they're saying actually answer your question, or does it leave you with more questions than answers? Liars believe that words alone can manipulate the truth, but the reality is that the way they use those words gives them away. Over-explaining and dodging are both signs of someone trying too hard to convince you, or trying too hard to avoid being caught. The truth doesn't need to work that hard. It's straightforward, honest, and doesn't shy away from scrutiny. When someone's words fall into these extremes, take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The truth may be hiding in plain sight, right in the spaces where their over-explaining and dodging fail to line up. The shift in a liar's emotions is like a storm on the horizon, sudden, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. A person weaving a lie may appear calm and composed one moment, but the next, their demeanor changes completely. They become defensive, agitated, or even accusatory. These emotional shifts aren't just random, they're calculated or instinctive responses to the pressure of maintaining a falsehood. The strain of deception has a way of tugging at their emotional strings, and if you pay attention, you can see the patterns in their performance. Imagine a scenario where you ask someone a simple question. At first, they answer smoothly, their tone measured, their expression steady. But the moment you dig a little deeper or ask for clarification, the calm facade begins to crack. Their voice might rise, their gestures become more animated, or their tone turns sharp and defensive. They might lash out, accusing you of being suspicious or overbearing, as if your questioning is the real problem. This emotional reaction is their attempt to deflect attention from the lie and place you on the defensive instead. This defensiveness often stems from fear of being caught, fear of losing control of the narrative. The liar knows the truth is fragile, and the slightest push can unravel their story. So they react emotionally, hoping that their intensity will discourage you from probing further. It's like throwing up a smoke screen. The more emotional noise they create, the harder it is for you to focus on the inconsistencies in their story. But it doesn't stop at defensiveness. A liar might also try to manipulate your emotions by shifting to anger or indignation. They might say things like, "I can't believe you're questioning me," or "Why would you even think I'd lie about this?" This tactic serves two purposes. First, it attempts to make you feel guilty for doubting them. And second, it distracts you from the original question. Anger, when it arises suddenly and without justification, is often a sign of someone trying to mask their discomfort. It's not the anger of someone genuinely wronged, it's the anger of someone caught in a corner, looking for a way out. Then there's the flip side of the emotional spectrum. Some liars shift to vulnerability, playing the victim to avoid scrutiny. They might act hurt, claiming that your questioning is unfair or that you're being too harsh. "How could you think I'd lie to you?" they might say, with tears welling up or a quiver in their voice. This tactic relies on your empathy, banking on the fact that you'll feel bad for doubting them and back off. But remember, authentic emotions are consistent and align with the situation, while manufactured ones often feel exaggerated or out of place. What's striking about these shifts is how abruptly they occur. A truthful person's emotions tend to flow naturally, rising and falling in response to the situation. A liar, however, changes gears suddenly, as though flipping a switch. One minute they're calm, the next they're defensive. One moment they're assertive, the next they're tearful. These abrupt changes are a sign of someone trying to control the narrative, using emotions as tools to manipulate and mislead. Another layer to this is how liars often overplay their emotions. They might become overly dramatic, amplifying their reactions to an unnatural degree. If they're angry, they're furious. If they're hurt, they're devastated. This overcompensation is an attempt to make their emotions seem more convincing, but it often has the opposite effect. Instead of drawing you in, it feels performative, like they're acting out a role rather than responding authentically. The key to recognizing this emotional shift is to remain calm and observant. Don't let their reactions throw you off balance. Instead, pay attention to the context. Does their reaction match the situation, or does it feel disproportionate? Are their emotions consistent, or do they swing unpredictably? And most importantly, do their emotional outbursts seem to arise as a direct response to your questions or challenges? If the answer is yes, it's a strong indication that something isn't adding up. Lying is a stressful act, and that stress often manifests in erratic emotional behavior. A liar might try to hide behind anger, guilt, or victimhood, but their emotions ultimately betray them. The truth doesn't need to be defended with dramatic shifts in tone or sudden outbursts. It stands firm on its own, steady and unshaken. When you notice these shifts, take a step back and look beyond the surface. The storm of their emotions is a sign of the internal battle they're waging. And if you stay grounded, you'll see through the chaos to the lie at the heart of it all. The body has its own language, one that speaks louder and more truthfully than words ever could. When someone is lying, their body often betrays them, no matter how convincing their words might sound. Physical tells are the involuntary reactions that arise from the tension of deceit. These tells are subtle but powerful, and if you pay close attention, they can reveal the truth hidden behind the facade. One of the most common signs of lying is fidgeting. A liar's body is often restless, as if the stress of maintaining the lie is too much for them to contain. They might tap their fingers, shift in their seat, or play with an object like a pen or a piece of clothing. These small movements are attempts to release nervous energy, but they also signal discomfort. The mind may be trying to keep the story straight, but the body is busy finding ways to cope with the unease. Sweating is another telltale sign. When someone is lying, their body often reacts as if it's under attack. Their pulse quickens, their temperature rises, and beads of sweat might form on their brow or upper lip. This physiological response is tied to the body's fight or flight mechanism, a reaction to the fear of being exposed. It's not always dramatic, but even a slight sheen of sweat or the sudden need to wipe their face can be a clue. Interestingly, some liars go in the opposite direction. Instead of fidgeting or showing signs of anxiety, they become unnaturally still. It's as if they're trying to suppress every movement, believing that stillness equates to control. But this forced stillness can be just as revealing. When someone sits too stiffly, avoids natural gestures, or seems overly controlled in their movements, it's often because they're consciously trying to hide their unease. The body's natural rhythm, its gestures, expressions, and flow becomes stilted, like a performance that doesn't quite feel right. The face, too, is a minefield of micro-expressions, fleeting, involuntary facial movements that reveal true emotions before the person can mask them. A liar might flash a brief smirk when they're trying to appear serious, or show a flicker of fear before their face settles into a calm expression. These micro-expressions are quick, lasting less than a second, but they're potent indicators of what's really going on beneath the surface. Eye behavior is another key area to observe. While some liars avoid eye contact, others might overcompensate by locking their gaze onto yours, trying too hard to seem trustworthy. Their blinking rate might change, either speeding up due to nervousness or slowing down as they concentrate on controlling their expressions. These subtle shifts in eye movement are not random, they're reflections of the internal struggle between maintaining the lie and the discomfort it causes. Even the voice can give a liar away. Though it's not a physical movement in the traditional sense, vocal cues are closely tied to the body's reactions. A liar's voice might rise slightly in pitch, crack under the strain, or fluctuate in unnatural ways. They might clear their throat frequently or pause awkwardly as they search for the next part of their fabricated story. These vocal shifts are often accompanied by physical cues, like swallowing hard or licking their lips, as the body struggles to keep up with the mental gymnastics of deception. Hands are another area to watch closely. Nervous hands might ring together, touch the face repeatedly, or gesture in ways that don't align with the words being spoken. Someone telling the truth uses gestures that naturally complement their speech. A liar, on the other hand, might overuse gestures to appear convincing or keep their hands unnaturally still, as if afraid of what they might reveal. Even posture can speak volumes. A liar might lean away from you, creating physical distance as if to shield themselves from scrutiny. Or they might adopt an overly casual posture, slouching or sprawling in a way that seems forced, as if trying too hard to appear relaxed. The key is to notice what feels unnatural or inconsistent with the person's usual behavior. It's important to understand that these physical tells don't exist in isolation. One fidget, one drop of sweat, or one stiff movement isn't enough to declare someone a liar. But when you see a cluster of these behaviors, especially when they occur alongside inconsistencies in their story, it's a strong indication that something is amiss. The truth doesn't need to be hidden, and the body knows that. When someone is honest, their movements are fluid, their expressions natural, and their demeanor consistent. But a liar's body is at war with their words, struggling to keep the lie intact while fighting the internal discomfort it creates. Even when they try to hold it together, their tells slip through the cracks, like water leaking from a dam under pressure. By observing closely and staying attuned to these subtle signals, you can see past the words to the truth beneath. A liar can control their story, but their body has a language of its own, one that, when understood, reveals far more than they intended to share. In the end, uncovering a lie is less about the words spoken and more about the truth that reveals itself through actions, expressions, and behavior. A liar may rehearse their story, polish their tone, or even wear the mask of confidence, but deception leaves a trail. It's in the eyes that avoid or fixate too long, in the contradictions between their words and their gestures, in the over-explained or evasive responses, in the shifts of emotion that don't quite fit the situation, and in the physical tells that betray the battle within. Lies are fragile, they crack under scrutiny, and when you learn to pay attention to the details, you'll start to see the cracks form. The key isn't to approach every conversation as if someone's trying to deceive you. Instead, it's about being mindful of inconsistencies when something feels off. Trust your instincts, they're often sharper than you give them credit for. If someone's story doesn't add up, if their behavior doesn't match their words, or if their energy feels forced, there's a good chance something isn't as it seems. People can lie with their mouths, but the truth leaks out through their bodies. But don't rush to judgment. Spotting a lie isn't about being quick to accuse, it's about understanding the context and gathering evidence. A single odd gesture, a shift in tone, or a moment of nervousness doesn't necessarily mean someone is lying. We all have moments of discomfort or distraction that have nothing to do with dishonesty. The real skill lies in observing patterns, noticing clusters of behaviors that tell a larger story. When the eyes, the words, the emotions, and the body all speak in discord, that's when you know something is amiss. Deception is a two-way game. While liars are trying to manipulate the truth, you have the power to see beyond the surface. By staying calm, listening more than you speak, and observing the unspoken cues, you put yourself in control of the interaction. Liars thrive on confusion and emotional reactions, so your greatest tool is composure. The more focused and steady you are, the harder it becomes for someone to maintain their web of lies. Yet remember that the ability to spot a liar is not a weapon to wield recklessly. It's a tool for discernment, for protecting yourself and your relationships. Use it wisely, not to call out every small inconsistency, but to safeguard your trust and ensure honesty in the connections that matter most. After all, trust is the foundation of every relationship. Once broken, it's hard to rebuild. Spotting lies allows you to address dishonesty early and decide how to respond, whether it's holding someone accountable or choosing to step away. At its heart, this skill is about valuing truth both from others and within yourself. Truth is powerful, it doesn't need to be rehearsed, and it doesn't crumble under pressure. By learning to recognize lies, you're not just uncovering deception, you're affirming your commitment to honesty, clarity, and authenticity in a world where those qualities are often in short supply. Stay vigilant, trust your intuition, and always choose to stand in truth. Now, let me say this, I'm not here to make you paranoid. This isn't about judging every little movement someone makes. But when the signs add up, don't ignore them. Trust your gut. Lies have a way of coming to light, and the sooner you spot them, the stronger you'll stand. Remember, this truth has a power all its own. It doesn't fidget, it doesn't stutter, and it doesn't need to over-explain. And once you learn to recognize what truth feels like, you'll never fall for a liar's game again. Thank you.